Commander Jake Sullivan stared out the viewport of his ship at the empty space ahead. The stars looked the same as they had for the past 3 months. Nothing but darkness and distant lights. His patrol route took him through what everyone called the dead zones, areas of space where nothing important happened. At least, that was what the aliens thought. Jake checked his watch. The diplomatic meeting on Station Harmony would start in 2 hours. He did not want to be there, but orders were orders. The humans always had to send someone to these meetings, even though the alien empires barely listened to them. Dr. Lisa Grant walked onto the bridge, carrying her datapad. She was the best xenobiologist in the human fleet, and she knew more about alien cultures than most humans. But even she looked tired these days. Any word from Admiral Morrison? She asked. Jake shook his head. Nothing new, just the usual patrol orders. Lisa frowned. Those supply ships that passed through Sector 7 yesterday. Did you get a look at their cargo manifests? Classified, Jake said. Above my clearance level. Mine too. That is strange. What could we be shipping that requires that level of security? Jake did not have an answer. Lately, a lot of things in human space had become classified. Ships moved through empty sectors carrying unknown cargo. Construction projects in asteroid belts that no one talked about. Energy readings that made no sense, but Jake had learned not to ask too many questions. The human military had its reasons for everything. 2 hours later, Jake and Lisa sat in the diplomatic chamber on Station Harmony. The room was designed to accommodate different alien species, with varying atmosphere and gravity zones. The humans always got the smallest section. Ambassador Kyle Torres represented humanity at these meetings. He was a good diplomat, but Jake could see the stress on his face. Dealing with aliens who saw humans as inferior was not an easy job. The Zephyrian representative, High Commander Vexstar, spoke first. His voice was cold and mechanical through the translation device. The hegemony has decided to expand our territory into the outer rim sectors. This includes systems currently claimed by the human species. Kyle kept his voice calm. High Commander, those systems have been human colonies for over 50 years. Our people have built homes there. Vexstar made a sound that might have been laughter. Your people can relocate. The hegemony requires those systems for strategic purposes. The Korath Dominion representative, War Master Thekaran, joined the conversation. The humans should be grateful. The hegemony could simply take the systems by force. They are offering you time to leave. How much time? Kyle asked. 30 standard days, Vexstar said. That should be sufficient for a species of your limited capabilities. Jake felt his hands clench into fists under the table. Limited capabilities. The aliens always talked about humans like they were children playing with toys. The Veil Syndicate representative, Shadow Speaker Nim Ara, spoke in whispers. Perhaps the humans would prefer to serve as workers in the new hegemony colonies? Your species has proven useful for manual labor. Lisa leaned forward. We are not interested in becoming your servants. Imara's laugh was like wind through dry leaves. You speak as if you have a choice. The meeting continued for another hour. The aliens discussed human territory like it was empty space they could divide among themselves. They talked about human colonies like they were inconvenient obstacles to be moved. Kyle tried to negotiate, but the aliens were not interested in compromise. They had made their decision. Humanity would give up 3 star systems, or the alien empires would take them by force. When the meeting ended, Jake, Lisa, and Kyle walked back to their ship in silence. The docking bay was busy with alien vessels coming and going. Massive Zephyrian battleships that could destroy a planet. Korath war cruisers bristling with weapons. Veil Syndicate stealth ships that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Compared to these fleets, human ships looked like tiny insects. 30 days, Kyle said finally. How do we evacuate 3 entire star systems in 30 days? We don't, Jake said. It is impossible. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. There is something we are not being told. Admiral Morrison has been acting strange lately. All those classified shipments. The energy readings in the outer sectors. Jake had noticed it too. For months, Admiral Morrison had been holding private meetings with select commanders. Conversations that stopped when other people entered the room. Orders that made no sense unless there was a bigger picture that Jake could not see. Project Titan, Jake said quietly. Lisa looked at him sharply. What did you say? I heard Admiral Morrison mention something called Project Titan. He did not know I was listening. They reached their ship, the UHS Defender. It was a good vessel, but small compared to the alien warships. Most human ships were designed for exploration and trade, not war. Everyone knew that humans could not match the military power of the great empires. As they prepared to leave Station Harmony, Jake received a priority message from Fleet Command. The orders were simple. Maintain standard patrols in the Outer Rim sectors. Do not investigate any unusual readings. Do not approach any unidentified objects. Do not ask questions. Jake stared at the message. Standard patrols in sectors where nothing was supposed to be happening. Areas of space that the aliens considered worthless. But what if they were wrong? What if humanity had been hiding something in those empty sectors? Something the aliens had never bothered to look for because they thought humans were too primitive. To build anything important? Jake set course for the Outer Rim, his mind racing with possibilities. Behind them, Station Harmony grew smaller in the viewport. The alien empires thought they had given humanity an ultimatum. Maybe they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. As the UHS Defender jumped to hyperspace, Jake wondered what Admiral Morrison was really planning. In 30 days, the alien empires would come for human colonies. Expecting easy conquest. Jake had a feeling they were going to be very surprised. 24 days. That was how much time humanity had left before the alien fleets arrived. Jake Sullivan stood in Admiral Morrison's private office, staring at a star chart he had never seen before. Red dots marked locations throughout human space, dozens of them, scattered across sectors that were supposed to be empty. Commander Sullivan, Admiral Morrison said, what I am about to tell you is classified at the highest level. The survival of our species depends on this information. Remaining secret. Jake nodded. He had suspected something like this was coming. For the past 60 years, humanity has been building. Not the small colonies and trading posts the aliens see. Something much bigger. The Admiral touched a control, and the star chart changed. The red dots expanded, showing massive structures hidden in asteroid belts, inside nebulae, and in the shadows of dead planets. 12 construction sites, Morrison continued, each one building something the galaxy has never seen before. A new image appeared on the screen. Jake stared at it for a long moment, trying to understand what he was looking at. It looked like a planet, but the surface was covered in metal and weapons. Massive guns that could destroy moons. Shield generators the size of continents. This is Leviathan, Morrison said. One of 12 planet-sized warships we have built in secret. Jake felt his mouth go dry. Planet-sized? Each one is as large as Earth's moon. They contain the industrial capacity of entire star systems. Weapons that can crack worlds. Shields that can absorb the energy of a star. The Admiral brought up more images. Ships so massive, they made the largest alien battleships look like insects. Construction facilities hidden inside what looked like normal asteroids. Mining operations that had been extracting exotic matter from dead stars. How? Jake asked, How did we hide something this big? By being underestimated, Morrison said. The aliens see us as primitive miners and traders. They never bothered to look closely at what we were actually mining, or where all those materials were going. In another part of human space, Captain, Amy Chun stood on the bridge of Leviathan. Around her, the massive warship hummed with power. Through the viewports, she could see the construction yards where the ship had been built. Thousands of automated factories working for decades to create something that should have been impossible. Final activation sequence complete, her engineering officer reported. All systems online? Amy nodded. After 15 years of construction, Leviathan was ready for war. The ship was so large that it had its own gravity, its own atmosphere, its own cities inside the hull. Millions of people lived and worked aboard the vessel. All of them sworn to secrecy. Status report on the other Titans? Amy asked. 11. Ship's report ready status. Prometheus's RAF is moving into position near the Korath border. Stellar Fortress is hidden in the Veil Nebula. Terra's Vengeance is standing by in the home system. Each of the 12 warships was positioned strategically. Throughout human space, the aliens thought they were preparing to invade defenseless colonies. Instead, they would be walking into the most devastating military trap in galactic history. Engineer Sam Rodriguez worked frantically in his laboratory aboard Stellar Fortress, the quantum folding technology that made the planet ships possible. Was his creation. He had spent 20 years figuring out how to pack continent-sized weapon systems into relatively small spaces. The power core is stable, he reported to his team. Quantum fields are holding at maximum efficiency. The technology was beyond anything the alien empires possessed. Human scientists had been secretly advancing for decades while pretending to be primitive. They had developed weapons that could destroy, solar systems and shields that could stop anything the aliens could throw at them. Dr. Lisa Grant finally understood what she had been seeing. Those mysterious supply shipments were not carrying normal cargo. They were transporting exotic matter, quantum processors, and weapons components to the hidden construction sites. The mining operations, she said to herself. We were not mining normal materials. We were harvesting the energy of dead stars. For 60 years, humanity had been slowly gathering the resources needed to build their secret fleet. Every asteroid mining operation, every deep space expedition, every scientific research mission had been contributing to the project. The aliens had watched humans spread across their small section of the galaxy and seen only weak colonists. They had missed the greatest military build-up in galactic history happening right under their noses. Admiral Morrison stood in the Fleet Command Center, watching the tactical displays. The alien invasion fleets were moving. Zephyrian battleships, Korath warcruisers, and Veil stealth ships were all converging on human space. Sir, his communications officer said, we are receiving surrender demands from all 3 empires. They want unconditional submission within 6 hours. Morrison smiled. Send them our response. The message that went out to the alien fleets was simple. Decline. On the edge of human space, the first alien ships entered what they thought were defenseless systems. Zephyrian scouts reported no unusual activity. Korath advance forces detected only normal civilian traffic. Veil infiltrators found exactly what they expected to find. But deep in the hidden construction sites, massive engines were starting to power up. Weapon systems that had waited decades for this moment were coming online. Ships the size of moons were preparing to reveal themselves. Morrison watched the countdown timer on his screen. In 3 hours, the alien main fleets would arrive at their target systems. They expected to find frightened human colonists begging for mercy. Instead, they would discover that humanity had been playing a much longer game. Admiral, his tactical officer said, all Titan-class vessels report ready status. Awaiting your orders. Morrison looked at the display, showing 12 massive contacts hidden throughout human space. For 60 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. They had built weapons that could reshape the galaxy. They had developed technology that would make them the dominant force in known space, but they had never wanted to use it. "Send the activation codes," Morrison said quietly. "Wake the Titans." Across human space, 12 planet-sized warships began to decloak. Energy signatures that had been hidden for decades suddenly blazed to life on every sensor. Array in the galaxy dot, the alien invasion fleets were about to learn that they had made a terrible mistake. Humanity was not the weak species they thought they were hunting. Humanity was the apex predator that had been waiting in the shadows. Captain Joe Miller watched the tactical display aboard Prometheus's Wrath with quiet satisfaction. His ship had been hiding in what the Korath Dominion thought was a dead solar system for 3 months. They had flown their invasion fleet right past him without noticing. Now it was time to introduce himself. "All stations report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Weapons charged, shields at maximum." Joe looked out at the Korath fleet through the main viewport. 200 warships, each one larger than any vessel humanity was supposed to possess. The aliens were confident, moving in loose formation toward what they believed were defenseless human colonies. "Decloak the ship," Joe ordered. Prometheus's Wrath dropped its stealth field and appeared on every sensor in the system. The Korath fleet immediately went to alert status, but Joe could tell they were confused. Their sensors were telling them something impossible. The object that had just appeared was not a ship. It was too big. It had the mass signature of a small planet. "This is War Master Kethfor of the Korath Advance Fleet," came a transmission. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself immediately." Joe smiled. "This is Captain Joe Miller of the Terran warship Prometheus's Wrath. You are trespassing in human space. You have 1 minute to withdraw." The alien response was predictable. Laughter, followed by threats. "Human, your species builds mining vessels and cargo haulers. Whatever trick you are using to mask your ship's true size will not save you. Surrender now or be destroyed." Joe had heard enough. Tactical, target their flagship. Minimum power setting. "Sir, minimum power will still, I know what it will do. Fire when ready." A single beam of energy lanced out from Prometheus's Wrath. It was a tiny fraction of the ship's total firepower, barely a warning shot by human standards. The Korath flagship, a massive dreadnought that had conquered dozens of worlds, simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, erased. The beam passed through it like it was made of paper and continued into the empty space beyond. The Korath fleet stopped moving. Joe could imagine the panic on their bridges as they tried to understand what had just happened. "This is your final warning," Joe broadcast. "Withdraw from human space immediately." 3 systems away, Dr. Rachel Kim stood in the Science Center of Stellar Fortress as the ship emerged from the Veil Nebula. She had been studying alien technology for years, but now she was part of something that made their most advanced weapons look like toys. Broadcasting on all frequencies, she announced to the communication team DOT. The message went out across the galaxy, transmitted by all 12 of the massive human warships simultaneously. Rachel had written it herself, choosing each word carefully. "People of the galaxy," her voice carried across space. "For 3 centuries you have called humanity primitive. You have dismissed us as miners and traders, unworthy of respect or consideration. You are watching the wrong species evolve." On the bridge of Stellar Fortress, Captain Amy Chun watched as the Zephyrian advance fleet approached their position. 150 ships, including 3 planet killers that the hegemony considered their ultimate weapons. "They are demanding our surrender," her communications officer reported. "Ignore them," Amy said. "Continue the broadcast." Rachel's voice continued across the galaxy. While you built empires through conquest and fear, we built something different. We prepared. We planned. We evolved in ways you never bothered to notice. Lieutenant Ben Parker sat at his station aboard Terra's Vengeance, recording everything he saw. As a junior officer, he had never imagined he would witness the most important moment in galactic history. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire on Stellar Fortress, unleashing enough weapons to destroy a continent. Planet-killer bombs, energy beams that could crack moons, missiles that carried the power of small stars. The weapons struck Stellar Fortress and simply disappeared. The ship's shields absorbed the entire attack without even flickering. "My God," Ben whispered, watching the tactical display. "They hit us with everything they had, and we didn't even feel it." The Zephyrian fleet stopped firing. Their most powerful weapons had done nothing. Ben could see individual ships beginning to break formation, their crews probably paralyzed with shock. Captain Amy Chun opened a channel to the alien fleet. "This is Stellar Fortress. Your weapons are insufficient. Withdraw immediately or face consequences." The Zephyrian response was desperate. "This is impossible. No species possesses such technology." Amy's reply was calm. "You are correct. No species you know possesses such technology." Across the galaxy, the other human warships were revealing themselves one by one. Each time an alien fleet encountered one of the massive vessels, the same pattern repeated. Disbelief, followed by futile attacks, followed by the terrible realization that they faced something beyond their understanding. The Veil Syndicate's stealth fleet materialized around what they thought was an undefended human research station. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by weapon platforms the size of small moons. The research station opened up like a flower, revealing itself to be another planet-sized warship. In the diplomatic chambers across the galaxy, alien leaders watched the tactical feeds in growing horror. Their invasion fleets, the most powerful military forces in known space, were being casually swatted aside by vessels that should not exist. Rachel Kim's broadcast continued. "We spent 60 years building these ships while you ignored us. 60 years preparing for the day when diplomacy would fail and you would try to take our worlds by force. You forced us to reveal what we hoped to keep hidden." On Prometheus's wrath, Joe Miller watched as the remaining Korath ships began to retreat. Some were firing randomly into space, their crews panicking. Others were broadcasting surrender messages on every frequency. "Sir, his communications." Officer said, "We are receiving priority transmissions from Korath High Command." "They want to negotiate." Joe shook his head. "Tell them to contact Admiral Morrison. I'm just here to make sure they leave our space." The revelation was spreading across the galaxy faster than the speed of light. Quantum communication networks carried the news to every major world. Humanity, the species everyone had dismissed as weak and primitive, possessed a secret fleet of warships that could destroy entire star systems. Ben Parker watched as more alien fleets arrived at human space, only to encounter the massive warships waiting for them. Each encounter ended the same way. The aliens would attack, their weapons would prove useless, and they would retreat in confusion and terror. "How long have we been this powerful?" Ben asked his captain. "Long enough," Captain Lisa Torres replied. "The question is what we do with that power now." Rachel Kim's broadcast was reaching its conclusion. "We built these ships not for conquest, but for protection. We hoped never to use them. You have forced our hand by threatening our people and our worlds. The galaxy will never be the same." The transmission ended, leaving space eerily quiet. Across human territory, alien invasion fleets were withdrawing in disorder. Some ships were fleeing at maximum speed. Others hung dead in space, their crews too stunned to function. The three great empires that had ruled the galaxy for centuries had been defeated in a single day. not by superior numbers or better tactics, but by the revelation that their victims had never been victims at all. Humanity had been the apex predator, all along, waiting patiently for the moment when they would need to show their true strength. That moment had arrived, and the galaxy would never recover from the shock. Admiral Susan Blake stood on the command deck of Terra's Vengeance, watching the most important demonstration in galactic history. Her ship was positioned near the Kepler system, where 3 human colonies waited in the path of the advancing Zephyrian fleet. "Admiral," her navigation officer reported, "the colonies are ready for relocation. All civilian populations have been evacuated to the mobile habitats." Susan nodded. What the aliens did not know was that human colonies were not fixed installations. They were designed to be moved when necessary. Today, she would show the galaxy just how mobile human civilization could be. "Begin system relocation protocol," Susan ordered. Terra's Vengeance engaged its most powerful systems. Gravity manipulators that could affect entire planets. Tractor beam arrays the size of continents. Energy fields that could move stars themselves. 3 planets in the Kepler system began to move. Slowly at first, then faster as Terra's Vengeance applied more power. The massive warship literally picked up the human colonies and began moving them to a safer star. System 20 light-years away, the Zephyrian fleet, still hours away from reaching Kepler, watched in horror as their target simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not abandoned, relocated. An entire star system had been moved like pieces on a game board. High Commander. Vexstar broadcast an emergency message to Zephyrian High Command. The humans have relocated an entire solar system. I repeat, they have moved 3 planets and their star to a different location. Our invasion target no longer exists. The response from Zephyrian leadership was silence. How do you fight an enemy that can move planets at will? In the Zephyrian capital system, panic was spreading through the government. Emergency sessions were called. Military advisors who had planned the human invasion were arrested or committed suicide in shame. The hegemony that had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for 800 years was collapsing within hours. Diplomat Nathan Ford sat in his temporary office aboard Stellar Fortress, processing surrender after surrender. His communication console had not stopped flashing for 6 hours. Every major alien government was trying to contact humanity at the same time. "Sir," his assistant said, "we have formal surrender documents from the Veil Syndicate, the Korith Dominion, and 17 minor empires. The Zephyrian hegemony is requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations." Nathan rubbed his tired eyes. He was a career diplomat, trained to handle complex negotiations between species. But nothing had prepared him for this. Entire civilizations were surrendering without humanity, firing a single shot in anger. What about the civilian populations? Nathan asked. Widespread panic on most alien worlds. Their governments told them humanity was primitive and defenseless. Now they are learning that we possess weapons that can destroy solar systems. Many alien species are having psychological breakdowns. Nathan felt a weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Humanity had not wanted this. They had built their secret fleet for defense, not conquest. But now they were responsible for an entire galaxy in chaos. The Veil Syndicate made one last desperate attempt to strike at human space. Their stealth fleet, invisible to most sensors, approached what they believed were the core human worlds. The plan was simple: destroy Earth and force humanity to surrender. But when the Veil ships arrived at the Sol system, they found something impossible. Earth was gone. In its place was a massive space station bristling with weapons. Luna had been converted into a mobile fortress. Mars was surrounded by orbital platforms that dwarfed entire fleets. The solar system itself had been transformed into a weapons platform. Earth was not a planet anymore. It was a mobile battle station disguised as a world. Shadow Speaker Nim Ara broadcast a final message before her fleet was destroyed. They turned their homeworld into a warship. These are not the humans we thought we knew. These are something else entirely. Captain Rick Davis led the humanitarian mission to the former Korath capital world. The Dominion's leadership had committed ritual suicide rather than face the shame of defeat by a species they considered primitive. Now their people were leaderless and terrified. Captain, his medical officer reported, we have civilian riots in 17 major cities. The Korath military has completely collapsed. Local governments are requesting immediate assistance. Rick had volunteered for this mission because someone had to help clean up the mess. The galaxy was in chaos, and humanity was the only force capable of maintaining order. Deploy the relief teams, Rick ordered. Medical supplies to the hospitals. Food distribution to the refugee centers. And get our translators working on emergency broadcasts. These people need to know we are here to help, not conquer. The ancient archives on a dozen alien worlds were being opened for the first time in centuries. Desperate governments were searching for any information about humanity, any clue about how they had hidden such power. What they found was disturbing. References to a patient species from the outer rim. Warnings about the quiet ones who watch and learn. Ancient texts that spoke of a civilization that would seem weak until the moment they chose to be strong. Some of the oldest alien species had known. They had left warnings that no one had bothered to read. The galactic economy was collapsing. Trade routes that had existed for centuries were meaningless when one species could move entire star systems at will. Currency exchanges crashed. As governments fell, stock markets that had been built on the assumption of Zephyrian, Korath, and Veil dominance simply stopped functioning. Nathan Forb received an emergency communication from the Galactic Council. The ancient institution that had governed interstellar relations for over 1,000 years was calling an emergency session. Sir, the council representative said, the other members are requesting immediate dissolution of the current governmental structure. They want to negotiate new treaties with humanity as the dominant power. Nathan looked at the formal documents. The Galactic Council, which had dismissed humanity as unworthy of full membership just days ago, was formally dissolving itself. They were admitting that their entire power structure had been based on a lie. Tell them we will consider their request, Nathan said. But first, we need to establish humanitarian aid protocols. Half the galaxy is in chaos because of this revelation. Admiral Susan Blake received a priority message from Admiral Morrison. Susan, I need Terra's vengeance to demonstrate our peaceful intentions. The alien populations are terrified. They think we are going to conquer them all. Susan understood. Fear was almost as dangerous as weapons. If the alien species believed humanity meant to enslave them, they might do something desperate. Something that would force humanity to use their terrible power in ways they never wanted to. Broadcast on all frequencies, Susan ordered. This is Admiral Susan Blake of the Terran Republic. We did not build these ships to conquer you. We built them to protect ourselves. We offer partnership, not domination. But we will defend our people against any threat. The message went out across the galaxy, translated into hundreds of languages. Some alien species believed it. Others did not. But slowly, carefully, the first steps toward a new galactic order began to take shape. The old empires were gone, collapsed under the weight of their own assumptions. The Galactic Council had dissolved itself rather than face the reality of human power. Now came the hard part. Building something better from the ruins of what had come before. Humanity had never wanted to rule the galaxy. But the galaxy needed rulers who would not abuse their power. Whether they wanted it or not, that responsibility now belonged to them. President Helen Murphy stood before the largest gathering in galactic history. Representatives from 200 species filled the main assembly hall of Terra's Vengeance. The massive warship had been converted into a diplomatic center, its weapons. Bays now serving as meeting chambers for the new galactic government. People of the galaxy, Helen began, her voice carried by translators to every ship and station. We stand at a crossroads. The old empires built their power on fear and conquest. We offer you something different. Helen had been elected president of the new Terran Republic just 2 weeks after the collapse of the alien empires. She was a former colonial administrator who understood both human determination and alien cultures. Now she faced the most important speech in galactic history. We built our ships not to rule you, but to ensure that no species would ever again face extinction at the hands of aggressive empires. Today, we offer you partnership in building a galaxy where all species can thrive. In the audience, former Zephyrian High Commander Vextar listened carefully. He had been among the first alien leaders to accept human authority, recognizing that cooperation was the only path forward. His empire was gone, but his people could still have a future. Admiral Tony Garcia walked through the corridors of Prometheus's Wrath, inspecting the new Galactic Peacekeeping Academy. Former Korath warriors trained alongside human marines, learning new tactics focused on protection rather than conquest. Admiral, Captain Joe Miller reported, the first graduating class is ready for assignment. 87 species represented, all committed to the new peacekeeping protocols. Tony smiled. The integration was working better than anyone had hoped. When alien military leaders realized that humans offered them meaningful roles in galactic security, most had eagerly joined the new system. Where do you want to deploy them? Joe asked. The Outer Rim disputes, Tony said. 3 species fighting over mining rights. Time to show them how conflicts get resolved in the new galaxy. The 12 planet-sized warships had transformed dramatically over the past 6 months. Stellar Fortress now served as a massive research center where human and alien scientists worked together on projects that would benefit everyone. Leviathan had become a mobile manufacturing hub, building infrastructure for developing worlds. Dr. Mary Johnson stood in her laboratory aboard Stellar Fortress, working with a team of alien researchers on quantum energy distribution. The technology that had powered humanity's secret weapons was now being adapted for peaceful purposes. Dr. Johnson, her Veil assistant Kiramesh said, I still do not understand how your species hid this level of advancement for so long. Mary looked up from her calculations. It was not just about hiding our technology. We were hiding our entire strategy. She brought up a holographic display showing galactic history over the past 3 centuries. Every major conflict, every war that could have destroyed entire species, we were there, working behind the scenes, manipulating events, preventing catastrophes. The display showed dozens of incidents where mysterious accidents, convenient supply, problems, or timely intelligence leaks had prevented wars from escalating. Events that alien historians had attributed to luck or coincidence. You mean ... double, Kiramesh began. The Korath-Zephyrian War that ended after only 6 months? We sabotaged their supply lines. The Veil Syndicate's expansion that stopped at the Rigel sector? We fed them false intelligence about resource deposits. For 3 centuries, we have been the invisible hand preventing galactic catastrophe. The revelation was staggering. Humanity had not just been building weapons in secret. They had been quietly managing galactic affairs for generations, using their perceived weakness as the perfect cover for sophisticated manipulation. Nathan Ford had been promoted to Secretary of Interspecies Relations, and his office was busier than ever. New trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and joint development projects crossed his desk daily. Sir, his aide reported, the Centauri Mining Consortium wants to establish joint operations with human engineers. The Vegan Collective is requesting human agricultural advisors. And the Antares Republic wants to trade their quantum mathematics knowledge for human shield technology. Nathan reviewed the requests. The galaxy was transforming from a collection of competing empires into a cooperative community. Not because humanity demanded it, but because cooperation with humans was simply more profitable than fighting. The economic transformation was remarkable. Human technology was so advanced that sharing even basic versions of it revolutionized entire industries. Alien species that had struggled with energy production for centuries suddenly had access to quantum generators. Worlds that had been isolated by distance could now be reached by human transportation networks. Captain Rick Davis oversaw the reconstruction of the former Korath capital world. The relief mission had grown into a permanent development program, with humans and aliens working together to build something better than what had been destroyed. The refugee camps are empty, his aide reported. Everyone has been relocated to permanent housing. The new government is functioning smoothly, and the economic recovery is ahead of schedule. Rick nodded. This was what human power should be used for. Not conquest, but construction. Not domination, but development. 6 months after the revelation, delegates from across the galaxy gathered aboard Terra's Vengeance to sign the new Galactic Constitution. The document established humanity as the ultimate guarantor of galactic peace while ensuring that all species had a voice in their own governance. This Constitution recognizes the sovereignty of all species, Helen Murphy announced as she signed the document. But it also establishes that no species may threaten the existence of another. Humanity will enforce this principle with whatever force is necessary. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. For the first time in galactic history, every major species had agreed to a single governing principle: no more wars of extinction. Admiral Jake Sullivan, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood on the observation deck of Terra's Vengeance, looking out at the fleet gathered for the ceremony. Ships from dozens of species flew in formation with the massive human warships. Former enemies now served as allies and partners. "Admiral," a young officer asked, "do you think it will last, this peace we have built?" Jake considered the question. The galaxy had been transformed almost overnight from a collection of warring empires into a cooperative community. But change this dramatic could be fragile. "It will last as long as we remember why we built these ships in the first place," Jake sighed. "Not to conquer, but to protect. Not to rule, but to serve." He thought about the past year, from the desperate 30-day ultimatum to this moment of galactic unity. Humanity had revealed their true strength not through aggression, but through restraint. They had used overwhelming power not to destroy their enemies, but to create a better future for everyone. The question is not whether our strength can maintain peace, Jake continued. The question is whether we can remain worthy of the responsibility we have accepted. Through the viewport, he could see construction ships beginning work on new projects. Space stations that would serve as neutral meeting grounds. Research facilities where species could work together on common challenges. Transportation networks that would connect every inhabited world. The galaxy that had dismissed humanity as primitive now looked to them for leadership. It was a responsibility that humanity had never wanted, but could not refuse. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And at its heart stood 12 planet-sized warships that had chosen to be guardians rather than conquerors. The galaxy would never be the same.